Hey everyone, I'm Gevin,
And I'm Dave.
and welcome to episode 5 of Lowlights. So we've got a big show today and an interview with Detroit Lions long snapper Hogan Hatten, who you'll hear from in a little bit. For those of you who do not know what a long snapper is, don't worry, we'll explain. But first, we're going to get into this week's highlights. Dave, I have an idea of where you want to start.
Is that because I'm wearing my 2024 NBA champions Boston Celtics shirt, Gevin? Is that why?
Of course not.
I mean, look, my guys got through the first round. Magic were a scrappy team. There were definitely some fouls that I had a little bit of a problem with, but look, there's some big series in the NBA right now. The Celtics are going to be playing the Knicks, which already boo New York. Let's go Celtics, but that should be a good series. Cavs Pacers low key.
Boston, New York. That's going to be huge.
Boston, New York. Cavs Pacers low key is going to be a great series.
Mm-hmm.
When we're recording this, Pacers already won game 1, and that's just a good, talented team that I feel like doesn't get talked about in the way they should. Can't help but notice.
We're not going to see at any of the remaining games.
Who's that, Gevin?
Tyrese Halliburton's father.
Yeah, speaking of lowlights, him getting into it with Giannis after the Bucks got eliminated by the Pacers last round on the court. Not a great look. Not a great look for anybody.
Not a great look.
Yeah.
I respect that he's always there watching his son. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
He's at every single game and clearly is his son's biggest fan and number one supporter. So I hope the Pacers find a way to make sure that he can still come out. I mean, what I've heard is that he's like no longer welcome at their games the rest of the playoffs. I don't know if that's true. I think the team did come out and say that, or someone said that. Hopefully he can come out and they'll find someone, maybe keep him away from the court. Have him up in a suite or something.
Yeah. But maybe it's a lesson to anybody who's, maybe a dad who's listening or a mom, cheer on your child and their sports, but try not to get in the face of an opposing player. Yeah. Maybe cheer for them, but don't but focus on that. Focus on that. But I don't know. Look, I'm a Celtics fan, so obviously I'm a little biased here, but I feel I just saw a stat on Twitter that Jason Tatum. Okay, so there are there are 3 players who in their first. It's a little bit of a weird stat, but just go with it. In the first 117 playoff games, so 117 playoff games, that's significant. There are only 3 players who have 2,800 or more points, 900 or more rebounds, and 500 or more assists through those 117 playoff games.
I mean, LeBron's got to be.
Yeah, so that's correct. He's one. The second one is a retired Boston Celtic, Larry Bird.
Okay.
And the third is a current Boston Celtic, Jason Tatum, JT. And I think it's funny because I feel like for every 10 times I hear NBA fans talk about Luka, I might hear about Jason Tatum once or twice. And again, maybe this is just me as a Celtics fan. You can tell me that, and that's a fair criticism. But I think what he's doing is incredible. And again, we'll see how he does in the series against the Knicks. Speaking of Luka and the Lakers, they didn't, we won't be seeing them. They will be watching the games maybe with Tyrese Halliburton's dad. For the rest of the playoffs. But shout out to the Wolves, and Ant, who, advanced and beat the Lakers. And then the Warriors and the Rockets had a great series too, that won 7 games. Playoff basketball, and playoff hockey are just so great. These 7-game series where it's back and forth and there's 2 good teams and there's stars and the home crowds are so into it. It's just, I feel like it's just so fun. And it's unlike the NFL playoffs where it's it's one afternoon, it's 3 hours and then it's over. For a week and a half, you can have this, right? Exactly. You can have this back and forth where the fans are going nuts and the teams are competing really. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. I just want my Celtics desperately to stay healthy. That's my biggest concern at this point in the playoffs is play well against the Knicks, but just stay healthy. If we're at full strength, I feel good about beating the Knicks and advancing. If we're not, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But that's actually where I wanted.
You mentioned hockey.
That's where I wanted to go next, actually. So, Gevin, when your Atlanta Thrashers, RIP,
Yeah.
when they moved, do you remember where they moved to?
Well, true Atlanta sports fans will know that the Thrashers were the second hockey team that we lost to a Canadian city. You know what the first one was?
No, I don't think I remember.
The Atlanta Flames moved to Calgary
became the
in
Calgary Flames,
1980.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
A little before my time, despite being older.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
No, that's funny.
I wouldn't know by looking at.
I don't know that I knew that they had been the Atlanta Flames. That's so funny.
That's right. But of course the Thrashers moved unfortunately to Winnipeg.
Yes.
And became the Winnipeg Jets.
So and the Winnipeg Jets had a wild finish. They were in the seventh game of their playoff series against the St. Louis Blues. Boo Blues, because they beat the Bruins a few years ago in the Stanley Cup.
Say why. Okay.
And
right.
the Jets, they tied the game. Game 7, they tied the game with 1.5 or 1.6 seconds left in the third period. So 1.5 seconds from elimination, they tie the game. And in the second overtime, they win the game. So insane. And the videos were just so fun. Like, even if you're not a hockey fan, I feel like just watching the video of that goal on is wild. The crowd absolutely loses their mind. The people outside the stadium absolutely lose their mind. And it was so fun. It was such an illustration of playoff hockey. But that said, it actually made me interested if you, Gevin, would be able to play.
Have you ever been to Winnipeg? No.
Would be able to name 5 cities in a game. And the name of this game, Gevin.
I can name 5 cities.
Yeah. No. That easy. Oh, so you win the game. Good job, Gevin. So the name of this game is can you name the 5 smallest cities in the United States and Canada that have one of the big 4 professional sports teams in that city?
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I'm not talking WNBA, MLS, whatever. I'm just talking big 4, NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB. Can you name the 5 smallest cities by population that have...
Give me my next question.
That have, by population, and this is according to Wikipedia, which has never been wrong about anything. So I don't really know what they're measuring for the city, but it's what the population's listed at on Wikipedia of list of U.S. and Canadian cities with a big 4 sports team. Gevin, can you do it?
And to be clear, you said and Canada.
United States and Canada.
Okay.
So
that's where I'm going to start.
A hint might be the city that we were just talking about, but I'll leave that to you to guess.
Okay. I'm going to go. So Winnipeg?
Correct.
I'm going to say
that's one.
What about Calgary?
Calgary is not on the list. Calgary is larger, apparently.
Larger? Okay. I'm going to stick with a few other Canadian NHL cities. Edmonton?
Not on the list.
Montreal, Ottawa, Vancouver. Okay, so none of those. Got it. So I'm going to move
Ottawa is 1, 2, 3,
that's their
4,
capital,
5.
I don't know how populous.
Ottawa is number 7.
Is number 7.
Ottawa is number 7. The rest, I will give you a hint. The rest are American cities, Gevin.
Americans. Okay, that's fine. I can do that. All right, let's go to the NBA. Sacramento?
No, good guess.
Okay. Salt Lake City, Oklahoma City.
That's it. Oklahoma City, number 5. Oklahoma City at 1 million, by the way.
Okay.
I would not have expected Oklahoma City to have 1 million people.
Right.
Wikipedia says they have 1 million people. OKC is number 5. You've got 3 to go.
So we got OKC, Winnipeg. I think those are the small.
You've got 3 to go,
cities.
And a hint here is they are all NFL cities.
Cincinnati.
Nope.
Green Bay?
Green Bay is 1. Number 1.
Okay, Green Bay.
328,000 people in Green Bay. Shout out Green Bay.
Oh, okay. So that's 3. I have 2 more.
2 more. They're both NFL cities.
Jacksonville?
Nope. Good guess.
Tampa Bay?
Nope. But stay in the NFC South.
Stay in the NFC South? Okay. Charlotte?
Nope.
Really? Atlanta? You said NFC South.
1 more.
So I said Tampa Bay. New Orleans?
New Orleans is number 3. 900,000 people. You wouldn't think it.
You're telling me New Orleans has fewer people than Cincinnati?
That is exactly what I'm telling you. Again, this is per Wikipedia. Wikipedia says Cincinnati has 1.7 million and that New Orleans has 900,000, which I would not have expected.
Okay.
And then we got 1 more.
Maybe Cleveland?
No. Stay in the Rust Belt, though. Stay in the Rust Belt. Little further east than Cleveland.
A little further east.
AFC East. Buffalo, New York.
Okay,
Buffalo,
nice.
New York is number 4.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought that, actually.
Yeah.
I would not have thought that Buffalo had fewer people than Cincinnati.
Yeah, Buffalo, 949,000.
Huh.
Now, they on this list say that I would have thought that Ottawa had fewer people. Ottawa has 1 million. I would have thought Edmonton had fewer people. Edmonton has 1.1 million. I would have thought Calgary has fewer people. Calgary has 1.3 million.
Interesting.
Not what I would have expected.
No, all right, that's a good game though. Okay, so just to recap, though, Green Bay
number 1, 300,000.
Yeah,
and nothing else is even close. The fact that Green Bay, Wisconsin has a football team is amazing.
And it's like in the middle of a neighborhood.
But yeah, it's Green Bay, Winnipeg, New Orleans, Buffalo, OKC.
OKC.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
So you learn something new every day.
Something new every day.
All right. Well, good job.
Good thing I wasn't on the clock for that
one. And then, all right, you always, you're the NFL guy. So let's go to the NFL.
Okay.
So I'll just start here with a shout out to Julian Edelman.
Yeah.
Patriots Hall of Famer, Mazel Tov. Congratulations. Well earned. On the list of, and also probably greatest Jewish Patriot player ever. I mean, not a very long list, but he's at the top for me.
I'll take your word for it.
Like in terms of greatest Patriots wide receivers, that's actually not a very long. Believe me, we had a great Patriots quarterback, but in terms of wide receivers, like to me, it's
Randy Moss.
Right, that's what I was going to say. To me, it's Randy Moss and then everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's not like all time stats for Randy Moss are so good because he wasn't with us that long.
For sure.
Sorry, I mean all-time stats just with the Patriots, team stats, franchise stats.
Yeah.
With the Patriots. But Randy Moss, obviously is the Patriots wide receiver. If you can pick one from our history for one game, you're picking Moss in 2007. No question. After that, Stanley Morgan still holds the record for most yards by a Patriots receiver. He was great in the late 70s and 80s, but Wes Welker still has the catch. Yeah. But then after that,
obviously like Gronk and Hernandez.
Right. But then Julian Edelman's a Super Bowl MVP from our last Super Bowl, fourth in receiving yards in Patriots history and second in catches in Patriots history. So I just... shout out to Julian Edelman. He put together as a seventh rounder who had been a quarterback in college. Super impressive. Shout out, Jules.
Shout out, Jules.
All right. And then I know that
congrats on the podcast. Come on.
Exactly. I know you wanted to talk about somebody else in the NFL though, who's on the road to recovery.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so we're going to talk to Hogan Hatten later in the episode. Detroit Lion, obviously. One of his teammates, Aidan Hutchinson. For those who watched his gruesome injury back in October of 2024, I rewatched it a couple minutes ago. Dave refused to recommend. Yeah, I don't recommend if you're squeamish.
But Aidan, to be clear, for people who don't follow the NFL, Aidan Hutchinson is a absolutely dominant defensive end. I mean, he's
24 years old.
On the defensive line, getting in the backfield, sacking a quarterback, etc.
Definitely. I mean, before his injury last season, he was leading the league in tackles and sacks, and probably was on his way to his first defensive player of the year title. But terrible injury. But a video came out a few days ago showing the big man on his road to recovery. He was on the treadmill, running some drills, doing like a single leg box jump, and I mean you can see his speed, his power, his intensity. They're all still there. He's not all the way back, but again, when you keep in mind that he shattered his leg something like 6 months ago, very impressive. And he's still got 4 more months until the season starts. So I think we should see an even more improved Aidan Hutchinson by the time training camp rolls around this summer. And maybe he'll make an appearance at OTAs, maybe limited, obviously, soon. But, it's clear the team believes in him. They picked up his 5th-year option not too long ago. So I think he's going to pick up right where he left off last season. And this could be the year where not only, he gets his defensive player of the year, but maybe he leads the Lions all the way to the Super Bowl? Question mark.
Well, I mean, look, maybe they could be, they could make it to the Super Bowl and lose to Pro Bowl quarterback Drake May and the New England Patriots. That's a good result. Wow. I think it'd be a great result.
But think about it though. Think about what difference it would have made if the Lions had someone like Aidan Hutchinson when they made their playoff.
Well, and Hogan
last year, and other players.
And Hogan talks about that in the interview today.
Yeah, exactly.
And talks about how they had lost a lot of their great defensive players.
Yeah, I mean, that was the story of last
Mhm.
season for the Lions. It was injury after injury, and they still found a way to win and, got their first number one seed, I think, in their team's
I think that's
history,
right.
15-2,
Mhm.
went 15 and
And
2.
then
So, you think
lost,
about, against the
unfortunately, in the
Commanders,
first round, in
right?
their first playoff game.
Exactly.
They played
They had the first round bye. They played.
right, and they played the Commanders, and they lost.
Yep.
But but so some of the people who are listening to this, Gevin, might not know what a long snapper is, and we promised that we would explain this at the beginning. So okay, it's in the name. So most of you, I hope, know that a long snapper snaps the ball. Okay. But what does that mean? Like, do they always snap the ball like to the quarterback? No, they do not. No, they do not. This is one of the positions I feel like most people, like even people who watch the NFL semi-regularly, might not fully be aware exists, but these guys are on the field every game. Every time there's a field goal or every time there's a punt, it is not the team's regular center who snaps the ball. There's a different guy who runs on the field, and his only job is to snap that ball back to the holder if it's a kick, to put the ball down and have the kicker kick a field goal or an extra point, or to the punter to then punt it away. And so I think like the fact that there's a separate player just to do this, nothing else, this is his only job on the team, I think should indicate to you how hard this is. And if every team in the NFL is willing to devote a roster spot just to be able to do this, it is super hard. I looked it up online, like you're supposed to, I think the pro players are supposed to be able to snap that ball from where they are to
how many
that
yards?
point. Yeah. It's like 10 yards back or more.
Right.
And they're supposed to be able to hit that exactly where that guy is without him moving his hands. Okay. So without him moving his hands, it's the size of a roll of paper towel or something. You're supposed to hit that target perfectly every time.
Every single
time.
And
it's, I think 0.6 to 0.7 seconds is a good time from when you snap it to when it hits their hand. And it's got to be exactly on target every single time to be a professional. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of how crazy this is.
That's just insane because, I remember the first time I learned how to throw a football, how to throw a tight spiral.
Right.
For those who might not know what that means, you see the quarterbacks out there just throwing these beautiful passes down the field. That actually takes a lot of skill, but it's something that you learn, if you're like a young guy, mostly, I feel like, you learn how to throw football at some point, right?
Or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. At recess, on the playground, at the gym, wherever. But that was hard enough to learn. Imagine then, like you said, snapping a football 10 yards where it's not just like you can kind of get it in the general vicinity, the general area, but you said, what is the window of
points?
What's the target they have to hit?
0.7 seconds, and the target is the size of like a paper towel, like a roll of paper towel.
Exactly.
And meanwhile, by the way, you have a 300-pound guy inches from your face as you're doing this, and you're looking at where you're throwing the ball, like between your legs, upside down, basically, to be able to snap it back to them. And then you've got this.
It's not like you're a center.
No,
where you got the quarterback right behind you.
No, you got this guy, and you got this guy right in your face, and if it's a game-winning field goal, that could be the most pressure-filled moment of the game. So,
but see, if you do your job right, nobody notices that you exist.
Correct.
Because if a kick goes wrong, most of the time you're like, oh, like that was on the kicker, but you don't realize that it's a 3-step process, right? The snap, the hold, the kick. But if you do your job right and you control what you can control, no one should ever even know that you had a part in that kick, right? The ball needs to get to the holder's hands when it needs to get there so the kicker can go through his motion and get it to the upright. So
crazy.
Fascinating. And what I think is so incredible about Hogan, which he'll talk about in his interview, is that he was a linebacker in college.
Right.
And it wasn't until toward the tail end of his college career that he actually switched over to special teams after he got benched. So I don't want to spoil too much of the interview, but just in the context, Dave, of everything you just explained, I think it's just even more incredible to then think about Hogan's story, which you all are about to hear.
So Hogan, I'll just say, Hogan is not a household name, but Hogan is a long snapper on the Detroit Lions and has an incredible story. And I think you'll hear that in the interview, from, going undrafted out of college to making it as a rookie in the NFL, and a serious illness that he just recovered from, as well as, his experience of losing in the playoffs, his experience of, going into this offseason and trying to keep his roster spot and knowing that as an undrafted rookie, he's not Tom Brady. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not
Right.
Saquon Barkley. He's not the most famous player in the NFL. His roster spot's never safe. And so it's just interesting to hear somebody who's in the NFL, but never is going to feel safe in the NFL in his role. So a really interesting interview. And I hope everybody sticks around afterward to hear us, do some spotlights and talk about, lessons we're pulling from the interview.
All right. We are thrilled to be joined by Hogan Hatten, long snapper for the Detroit Lions. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Happy to be here.
First of all, how are you feeling?
Welcome, Hogan.
It's been a little bit of a rough patch for you physically these past couple weeks, but how are you doing? You look good.
I'm feeling way better. These last couple of weeks have been pretty tough. Spent 4 nights in the ICU. 6 days total in the hospital, and now I'm an ICU graduate, which is nice.
Congratulations!
But no, I'm feeling way better.
Good. Really happy to hear that.
We were both worried and so happy to. Obviously, looking at you look like you're so healthy. So we were both surprised and really glad to hear that you're doing better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I'll kind of get into what happened, but I was on my way back to training camp, so we got OTA starting up, and they start on Monday, and I like being 3-4 days early, 5 days early, just so I could settle in at my own place. So I had a flight booked for 2 Wednesdays ago. I can't remember the exact date. It might have been the 16th, I think, of April. Had my flights booked, got to the airport in the morning, didn't really have a ton of symptoms. And then the next thing you know, I'm, shaking with a 102-degree fever, and I pass out. So pass out from the airport. I started coughing blood. I had no idea what was happening. And they took me in an ambulance and found out I had strep pneumonia. And I went septic. So that was the big problem. But luckily, feeling much better now. Putting my weight back on. I lost about 20 pounds in there. So I had to put some.
Gosh.
Feeling way better.
Well, I want to lose a few pounds, but that's not the way I want to do it.
No, that's right. Exactly. That's not the way I want to do it.
That's not the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
Reminder to young men who are watching, take care of your health. And if something's wrong, make sure you get the care you need.
Yeah, wash your hands. That's what they told me. You should wash your hands. I'm like, do you think that's what it was? Like, but yeah, bad luck. Just wrong place, wrong time. Somebody probably had strep and coughed, and I ended up breathing in the bacteria, and it just is what it is. But
wow,
way better.
To be honest, I didn't know that could happen. I feel like growing up, people at school, they'd have like strep throat, whatever. They'd be out for a few days, but I don't know, you could die from it.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I didn't either. Like, I get the normal fear stuff.
Yeah.
My mom was like, hey, when you're out with your friends tonight, like, don't get hit by a car.
Yeah.
Kill you.
You're like, thanks, Mom.
Like, hey, watch out for this. Right. This, like, it gets you. So it's just, it's crazy situation, but very thankful. And I'm just so happy to be feeling as good as I am, because 10 days ago I physically couldn't get out of bed,
right?
And I was stoked when I was able to take one lap around the ICU with an oxygen tank, but I was on 80 liters of oxygen on 70% power through my nose. Like, I couldn't breathe on my own. It was rough.
I mean, talk about perspective. You said that the win that you were celebrating a few weeks ago was getting out of bed. And
entirely. Like, I was stoked, totally stoked. I could stand up on my own. I had a ton of wires. I mean, the big part is when you go septic, they're really worried about your blood pressure. So my blood pressure was really low, and they had to actually put an artery IV in so they could monitor my blood pressure at all times, and just basically get my body to where it wasn't shutting itself down. But you're right. Perspective wise, health is definitely become my number one priority. And unhealthy, it's crazy how much life changes.
But it's like, I'm sure, and like as a professional athlete, you need your health and you need your body to be in good condition for your job, but I'm sure you weren't really thinking about the fact that you needed your body to be healthy for your life.
Yeah, and it was really scary because I went from 2 days prior training in San Diego with our punter Jack Fox, and I had put in. I think the most disappointing part for me this off season was I really stuck to a pretty strict regimen. I had my training program set. I was lifting on a 5 times a week basis. I had my snap program set to where I was snapping 3 times a week. I felt like I was going to come back, and honestly, I just wanted to come back and show off to our coaches because it's one of those things where I was a rookie. They've never seen me handle an off season. I wanted to come back better than I was. Kind of give them the perspective of, hey, Hatton's coming in here and he cares. He loves his job. He wants to be here. This is something he wants. So I was pretty disappointed that I couldn't. I haven't been able to come back and really show the growth I've made. But I know in a couple weeks' time, I'll be able to do that. So I'm excited for that.
No, we know that too. So by this point, you're
for sure.
a little over a week into training camp.
So we're actually not in training camp right now. Is OTAs, so it's optional training activities for the team. So you actually don't have to be here. But with my position and I guess the really the foundation of this team, everybody's here, everybody understands it's important to be around each other. It's really important for Jake, Jack, and I to get work together just because, we're kind of a battery. And if you don't have everything to, create the power source, then, you're left out. So it's important for Jack to hold for Jake, just as it's important for me to.
Yeah. So it's funny. I've heard various players talk about, some of them just call it organized team activities or obligated team activities. Yeah, because it depends on the team and the coach and the players, whatever. But yeah, no, for a lot of people who think of the NFL season as only going from September to, however far, hopefully you get in the playoffs, a lot of people don't recognize that in April, May, you actually do still have to be a part of the team and often show up and see your coaches and your teammates.
Yeah. And it's nice because really the one thing that's nice about our club is it's really not mandatory. Dan Campbell, nobody's harping on you. Nobody's telling you to be here. It's all really voluntary, which is nice because then, you get the people that come back and really want to be here and really want to work. And it's nice to be around this like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
And it's a better program than being you're voluntold.
Right.
Instead of being voluntold, everybody's happy to be here.
Yeah. I mean, after how last season ended, I have a hard time believing that there are guys who are not there at OTAs right now. I mean, I saw the looks on, all y'all's faces after that game, the loss against the Commanders. And I know just how hard y'all worked to be in the position to go all the way last season. And, I would guess that, you and all your teammates are just doing everything that you can, have been doing all that you can during the off season to be in a position to go all the way this upcoming season.
Yeah. And it's, I know I'm just going through a different type of illness, sickness, injury type of thing, but we've got a lot of guys that are already back and committed, and Malcolm Rodriguez is coming back. And, we just have, last year, winning a Super Bowl, in my opinion, is right next to winning the NCAA basketball championship. It's just that one to do. I mean, there's a reason multiple teams in this league haven't won one, or even gone. So it's a hard feat, and a lot of luck goes into it too. Believe just in terms of, all right, our 3 defenders got hurt, and that's a tough place to be when you're in NFL caliber, or not just NFL caliber offenses, but playoff NFL caliber offenses. So, we're just hoping that this next year we get a little bit of the luck on our side, and we have the pieces to do it, and we're just excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
That's actually something I was interested in, Hogan, because, the NFL is not like the NBA or the NHL or Major League Baseball, for lots of reasons, but one of which is it's just one game, right? when you're in the playoffs, in the NBA, you have an off night. Okay, well, it's a 7-game series. You can try to come back next game and tie up the series, or you have a few games to try to show your stuff. Whereas in the NFL, like as a Patriots fan, I saw year after year, like often the Super Bowl would come down to like one play or one catch. And like you put in this whole season of work and it comes down to whether like one player makes one catch on one critical drive. So I was just wondering, like, what was that like for you? What was that like for you to spend this whole season, go through this whole incredible rookie year, and then all of a sudden, just like that, like all of a sudden you're in the off season and you're looking at the, coming back next year and your off season program and all that.
Yeah, that was a really weird feeling, especially being a rookie, never experiencing an off season. And right when we get into the locker room, you could tell that Dan was emotionally hurt and frustrated, and it was just honestly hard to watch as a player, just with somebody who's so committed and put so much time into the team. But he comes in and he's like, rookies, that's it. Everybody gets to go home. The season's over. And that's when it hit me. It was almost like an eerie feeling, like, all right, now I don't really even know what to do. Like, do I go home? Do I stay here? Yeah, then you end up going to the facility and they kind of walk you through your locker. You clear everything out because as much as I'm on contract, they could choose to not bring me back. So I have to clear everything out and take everything out of my locker. And then you're like, oh my God, do I have a job? Even though you're on contract, they don't have to pay me. They can tell me immediately, hey, you're not our guy. We're going to get rid of you. The same way they could do it to Jared if they felt the need. It's a strange feeling, and it's almost intimidating in a sense because it feels like you're making an NFL roster all over again every year. And I know that it's going to be kind of my life in this league.
And do you feel like that's something that almost bonds you and your teammates together? Because that's an experience that very few people outside of professional athletes can really understand. But I imagine it must feel at the same time like extremely isolating. Like you're just saying, this comes down to your contract and whether or not you have a job, whether or not you're going to be on a roster starting or not starting next season. But at the same time, every single guy in that locker room can relate to that. So I imagine it's somewhat of a, just something that you guys can really come together around. What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, we just have a great group of guys that everybody gets along. You don't see, you see the little football fights. That's just the normal football fights. One guy shoves one guy, but we're really, honestly, we say a brotherhood because you get to pick and choose your brothers. You're not a family. Family, you get gifted family. This is a brotherhood. You choose whether or not who comes in. But it brings people together, but it also drives some people apart in terms of everybody's competing for positions, and it's hard to see the new guys come in and somebody might be taking your job. So it's just a very competitive business, but I feel like we have such mature men on our team that everybody understands that this is a business. We're all here doing the same thing, trying to put food on our family's plates. Like I'm honestly impressed with how well the guys in the league handle it. And I had a great example with Scott Daly, who's just an outstanding man. But it comes down to like everybody's fighting over the same food,
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's actually where I wanted to go to next, Hogan, and to go back. So you actually, you and your brother, you growing up in Arizona, right? And then you ended up, there was a little bit of a process there, but you ended up in Idaho for college. So stayed on the West Coast. And that's what propelled your journey into the NFL. But I was wondering if you could just take us through that a little bit. I mean, there a lot of people who watch the NFL might not even know about like what a long snapper is or like how you would even get that kind of a skill set. So I wonder if you could just like take us back through that a little bit and like how your journey started, like at what point you started thinking like, oh, the NFL could be in my future.
So I didn't really think the NFL would be in my future until I got signed. Really, everybody can tell you, I thought I was going to the NFL. Dude, this is the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. I mean, I think ignorant and a little arrogant if you really think you're born to be in the NFL. My take is what it is. But I was at Idaho and I actually was a linebacker. So I played linebacker at Idaho for 4 years, started for 3 different seasons and really enjoyed it. Well, come my senior year, so I had a freshman year, then a COVID freshman year, COVID sophomore, COVID junior, COVID senior. So for the middle 3 years, I ended up starting at linebacker at some point during the season. But during that third year, we had a coaching change. So when we had a coaching change, they brought in a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, new head coach, and basically did a full clean sweep of the coaching roster. And even though I'd been the starting guy for 2 years prior, the coach that came in just wasn't super fond of my gameplay. And I play a little differently at linebacker. I was more of a witty, smarter guy that played well in coverage. But I was never really like a true thumper. But the strength of my game was I was a really good tackler. I just didn't miss very many tackles, and he wanted more of a real bruiser type linebacker, the 5'10" guy that's 250 pounds running downhill. That just wasn't my thing. I was a 6'2", 6'3", 210, 215 pound middle linebacker that played a little more finesse. I ended up getting benched my senior or my COVID junior year. And I kind of took a look in the mirror and went, all right, being a linebacker at the next level probably isn't going to be my thing. So I alternated and said, I'm going to try to long snap for my senior year. And even though I had done it, as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior, or, the COVID, I'd done it 4 years prior. I said, this year I'm going to take it super serious and see what I can make of it. And from then on, I started taking it pretty seriously. I went and saw some coaches, private coaching, and the rest ended up being history. So me getting benched was probably the best thing that could have ever happened. Even though in the moment, it was absolutely heartbreaking. I wanted to transfer. I didn't want to be there anymore. I was very frustrated. I felt like I had pretty much had my job stolen from me without a reason, because I was definitely our most effective and efficient linebacker, which just frustrated the hell out of me. Like, how are you going to bench? I mean, I had multiple 10 plus tackle games, and I'm like, it didn't make sense to me. But at the time, it just kind of seemed like the Lord had a bigger plan, and I ended up snapping. And, without me getting benched, I would have never transitioned to fully long snapping, and I probably wouldn't be in the NFL.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that's just so crazy to think about that actually the bet that, like, exactly as you're saying, you have this moment where your career is in jeopardy. You feel like, you lost your job, your future's totally uncertain. A lot of people, Hogan, I think, might have just given up at that point and been like, oh, forget this. Like, I don't need this. And instead you did the exact opposite, and you just like showed up and you decided to rededicate yourself to this skill, and it ended up working out so well for you. But I just, I don't know. Do you think that comes from like your background, your upbringing, your like, what do you think it was that enabled you to say, I'm going to lean into this and figure out how to make this work, as opposed to saying, whatever, screw this, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm pretty fortunate. I have a great support system around me in terms of I have an identical twin brother who was at Idaho with me, played receiver, and was picked up by the Seahawks. So he's doing his little journey. Now he's with the BC Lions,
right,
up in Canada. And my parents I have some of the best parents a kid could ask for. So I wanted to quit on multiple occasions, calling my mom and dad crying, hey, this is unfair. I don't want to do this anymore. And I just remember my dad telling me, hey, stick it through. You have a scholarship. It's important to get your education. So I really wanted to give back to my family in terms of finishing my school and finishing my athletic career, just so they didn't have to pay out of pocket for my education. My family and my support system really pushed me to stick with it. And they're even long snapping wise, I told my dad, like, hey, I'm just wasting time. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm going to these camps. I mean, I think I'm better than the other kids, but doesn't everybody, So you just turn and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. There's only 32 spots in the league. I mean, what am I really one of the top 32 best players in the world? So when you kind of have that doubt in your mind, it really drains you. And I think it's important to put people around you that believe in you, because as much as as much as you want to believe in yourself all the time, it's not the easiest thing to do, especially when you get to these crazy high levels and everything's so competitive.
It's actually funny, Dave.
Oh yeah, I mean, Gevin and I know that.
Yeah. We were actually talking.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's funny. We were talking to Chris Cluey, Hogan, for our last episode, who was a punter with the Vikings for a long time. And Dave, I remember him saying that one of the best ways to get reps in, if you're, kind of one of those edge players, is to get special teams reps. And it's just so funny that our next guest, Hogan, is someone who, as you just said, literally would not have made it to where you are today had you not had the wherewithal to realize, hey, maybe it's time for me to pivot away from defense and move over to special teams, which just good on you, man. I mean, like Dave said, I think a lot of guys would have just been like, well, if I can't start on defense, that's it. So I think just the wisdom that you had and the family, the positive people in your corner who are hyping you up and building you up and pushing you to pivot. I mean, look at you now, man. Could you have guessed that this is where you would be today when you got benched as a linebacker, a starting linebacker in college? Now one of 32, like you said, one of 32 skill players in the
like
NFL.
You said.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's really been an incredible journey. And I have so many people to thank for it. But at the end of the day, I think it's very important to self-reflect and realize, like, I took a big piece of humble pie to say, I'm not good enough to do this in the NFL. And sometimes pivoting is really the best option that you can make for your life. But if you pivot, I think it's important to tell people, if you make that change, you have to go all in. You can't sit and make a change and be 1 foot out the door already because you're upset or you're not in a place you want to be, or like, I get it. It's easy to do that. But if you're going to make a true change in your life and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to move to this, I think it's important to give it 100%. Because if you don't, then you're not really giving yourself a fair chance.
Yeah. So then take us through, your story then after you moved over. You're a long snapper now. How did you get to the NFL?
Right. I think the most important thing for any player is pro day or combine.
Yep.
So the whole Shador Sanders thing. And if you sit out of the combine, it's the most important thing you can do in terms of even the guy over the running back at Scatabo. If he goes and runs a 4.6 40, he's a second round draft pick. But he didn't want to run a 40, which now you leave teams to speculate, hey, did the guy really run a 5.1? Like how, so and I think he's a great player. He was at Sac State. I played against him at Idaho. He's a stud. I think he totally deserves a chance. But you just leave questions in the air if you don't compete on pro day. So I got lucky to where my brother and I had a pretty good following going into pro day and had some exposure, had some agents, and we were signed with different agencies, and we figured out, like, let's see what happens. And we got lucky that WSU wanted to do pro day with us at Idaho. So we're 6 miles apart, if you didn't know that. So we're right across the street. But when we did pro day, and 31 teams showed to our pro day, which at Idaho is pretty unbelievable. Like, that's not a number you would guess to see at an FCS school. But we also had Jermaine Jackson, who had a big following, and he played for the Saints last year, stayed the whole year. Now he's actually up in Canada with my brother, playing with him in the CFL. But yeah, we had 31 teams, and during pro day, I think that's where I made my name in terms of like, I posted the third most athletic long snapper, score ever. Since they've been tracking the numbers, which that helped me a lot.
And by then, you had been a long snapper for how long?
I'd been a long snapper for about a year. Like seriously, taking it seriously.
That's amazing.
But I posted
That's
a 4.79.
Well,
but my numbers are really good. 36-inch vertical.
Yeah.
I just did the right things.
Yeah.
And I trained really hard for pro day, and I knew that it was the only day that mattered. So that was a lot of pressure. That right there, pro day was actually more pressure than playing in my first. Just because you don't get the chance.
So funny.
If you don't perform on pro day.
Yeah.
No, and for the people who aren't who are listening who might not totally know the difference, I mean, to your point, Hogan, the combine, the NFL combine, I mean, that's when hundreds of prospects are going to Indianapolis, running those 40s. It's broadcast on the NFL Network. I mean, obviously that's one way of getting in the NFL. But these pro days, when teams have to come to you where you are, and you have to get people who are interested in you to show up. That, I mean, to your point, the fact that 31 teams showed up to see you go through those workouts and to see you snap the ball and whatever else you did is just such a testament to you and how you showed out in college and turned really made lemonade out of the lemons that you were given by losing your starting job on defense.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny to look back and realize like how frustrated I was and how down on myself I was, after the moment when I figured out like, hey, they're going to go a different direction. But like I said, I think it's important to where if you do make a pivot, like if you go 100%, you have no idea what could happen and what the results could be. And I know I've far surpassed any expectations I've had for myself. And maybe that's a bad thing that my expectations weren't higher. But I also think it's important to give yourself reasonably obtainable goals that, have time limits. Like I remember being back in training for pro day and I said, I want to get to 15 bench reps. Like that is a number that's applicable. I can do that. I've got 2 months. I need to get 4 more bench reps. I was at 11 to get to 15. And then by pro day, I hit 18 and it's like, okay, that's a bigger jump than I expected, but it's just good to give yourself reasonable goals that you can go out there and get. Because if you want to get stronger, I promise you, if you say, hey, I want to hit 2 more bench reps than I did, if you dedicate yourself, you will get 2 more bench reps, So it's just one of those things where I think it's important to, segment your goals in order to really achieve multiple goals rather than, hey, I've just got this one big one that I care.
Yeah.
That's so smart. And breaking things into manageable chunks is such a smart way to approach that, because you're right, like make the NFL. That's such a crazy goal in some ways. And so the idea of breaking it up into, let me see if I can just break this into a bench goal and a time goal from 40 and this, that, and the other. And that's actually where I wanted to go, is just like the end of that story. So you hit that pro day, you crush it in your pro day, but you end up, you go undrafted, and you end up with the Lions. Like, just take us through that a little bit. Like, what was it like to get that phone call and then to show up in training camp and think to yourself, like, were you thinking to yourself, like, I can't believe I'm in training camp, and like also look at all these other guys that I have that are, to your point, are eating the same food or trying to make the same roster, and there's only so many spots.
Yeah, and the crazy part about being a long snapper is they only keep one.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So I knew,
and the Lions had another long snapper at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
But I knew, so I was very lucky. I had 6 different contracts I could have signed. So I had 6 different teams I could have went to.
Wow.
But I knew that because as an undrafted free agent, you get to pick, which is an advantage for somebody like me, for a specialist who's going to go out there and try to take realistically somebody else's job. And unfortunately for the guy that was here, he'd come off of a pretty bad knee injury. And I kind of, you end up being a shark and you see the blood in the water and you kind of say, all right, it's me against you this time. And I'm the one with a good knee. So you start limiting your options on, okay, well, do I really want to go compete against that guy? Okay, do I really want to go compete against that guy? All right, I think this is the best option. Then again, I was lucky enough to really have options and narrow it down to try to make the roster. Now, with the shoes I'm in now, I would feel confident to go anywhere. But when you're a rookie, you just need to get in the door because they want to stay with somebody who's got the experience. And I mean, the biggest stadium I played in, yeah, I ended up playing at Penn State, but I mean, we were down 70 points. How much pressure do you really have? You know?
Wow. And that's when you ended up beating him out in training camp and making that roster. But I mean, I just, it's thinking back on that journey and hearing you talk about it. I mean, it's such a testament to you. It's a testament to your perseverance and your attitude and obviously your skill as well. But, it's just so impressive to hear you go through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's important for pretty much everybody out there to realize, like, just because one door closes doesn't mean another one can't open. And sports in itself, it's a weird thing where a lot of it is just opportunity. And sometimes the person, somebody never comes ringing the doorbell. That's just how it is. But in most situations and in most college, in terms of being a college athlete and even in high school, you're going to be in a room with 7, 8, 9 other guys, and you might be number 8 on the depth chart. But come the middle of that season, there's a really good chance 3, 4, and 6 get hurt, and all of a sudden you're number 3, and bang, you're in the mix, and you never thought you'd get the opportunity, and there you are. You're on the field. So I think it's just important to stay ready and keep a positive attitude, because even when things get taken away, it doesn't mean your athletic career is necessarily over.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because Hogan, that was going to be my next question. I mean, again, we would love to keep you here for hours because it's just like so fascinating to hear you talk about this. But one of the reasons that Gevin and I are doing this podcast is to try to reach young men who might be struggling, and young men in high school or college or whatever. And maybe it's because they lost their starting job because the coaching crew changed at their college, or for whatever else it is. And we're just wondering, do you have any advice for young men who might be watching this, who are going through that tough time, who are struggling, and for whom a door did just close? Like, what do you say to young guys like that when they ask you about making the NFL and staying positive?
Kind of like I said before, I think the most important thing is even when doors close and things kind of shake up, it's really important to have manageable goals. Because if you can just kind of trick your brain into even thinking you're successful at that moment in time, you're going to inevitably play better. You're going to have better results on the field, and you're just going to be in a better mood, which is going to lead to better play. Like I get that sometimes you get down on yourself. I was somebody who probably beat myself up too much. But once I found that one niche and said, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to this, it was easy to then start making small goals. And hey, I want to hit this snap time. Hey, I'm trying to think of how do I get my head up faster. And it's just it really becomes a positive roller coaster once you start setting small goals. And I think that's the best way to get out of somewhat of a rut.
Okay. Great answer. All right. So we end every interview with a few lightning round questions. And we've had like a mix of answers on these. So I'm interested to know where you want to go with it. So the first is favorite movie or TV show. Usually it's sports related, but like favorite movie or TV show, and that can be because you think it's the most accurate, or it's the most inspiring, or whatever. Like what's your go-to when you are feeling a little down, or where you want to put on something that is going to make you feel better?
The Avatar from Nickelodeon.
The Last Airbender?
Last Airbender. It's the best show ever. Nothing but positive chakras there. All good.
Great answer. That's not one I saw coming. No. Great answer.
Seen the whole show probably 3 times. I'll just turn it on. Girlfriend Cup, throw the avatar on.
Wow.
Pro tip. All right.
Wow. Now I'm very curious to hear your answers to our second and third questions.
Yeah.
Okay, Hatton. So Hogan, when you're feeling down and you want to pump yourself up with some music, maybe you're driving to the facility, or maybe when you wake up in the morning, what do you turn on? Who's your favorite artist? What's your favorite song? Any of that?
I'm just anything 80s, 70s rock, hip hop.
Really?
Yeah, any oldies music. I'm ready to go. Yeah, like, Madonna.
I'm right there with
Madonna.
Love Madonna. She's amazing. Just anything that I love the 80s and 70s, just because I like the instrument factor in it, where it's not so techno and is. But yeah, I just love rock and roll, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that. I mean, some of those bands like Van Halen, like the guitarists from that, they were playing on everybody's tracks. They were all over the place.
Tom Petty, even Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's a little newer,
Yeah,
but
for sure. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Chad
Great
Smith
answer.
looks like Will Ferrell. But he's the most famous in the world, and people call him Will Ferrell. It's terrible.
Yeah, totally. All right, and along the same lines, favorite food, usually comfort food. Like, what's the meal you go to? Could be a pregame meal, but also just like, what's the meal that you like will always look forward to and turn to?
I wouldn't eat this pregame, but I'm a sushi guy. I love sushi. And honestly, I'm pretty pumped here in Michigan. Detroit's got some pretty good sushi spots, so I get to run around. But there's nothing better than the pregame, like the pregame meal buffet, like when you got like your fillets and all that. You're like, oh yeah,
okay, okay. So that's nice. So that's those are the two answers among the sushi rolls, like or at sushi. Like, what's the roll that, like, if that's on the menu, you're ordering it for sure?
Anything with spicy tuna and tempura shrimp in it. So sometimes they call them dragon rolls. They got anything spicy tuna, tempura shrimp, and then I love the hamachi, the yellowtail nigiri.
Oh, so good, hamachi. Oh, come on.
Ponzu sauce all over it. It's the way to go.
Hogan, you're talking my language.
If you were listening to our interview last week, Chris Cluey also said that sushi was his go-to pick-me-up food. So is this a special teams thing or what?
A couple of guys with expensive taste.
Oh man, that's amazing. Hogan, well, we know you have to run. But man, your story is just such an Dave. I mean, I think I speak for both of us. I mean, your story, Hogan, is such an inspiration.
Completely.
And honestly, a lot of what you were saying, we've heard from our guests in the past, which is, when one door closes, another door opens. Being ready to pivot when you need to do that. Surrounding yourself with people who, are going to speak positivity and who are going to build you up, not tear you down. And I think your short career so far, I think demonstrates all of that. And, Dave and I are both very excited to see, what you continue to do in the league. We started with, where your last season ended. No matter what happens this season, which I'm going to call it now. Y'all are gonna go even further than where y'all went.
We do. So
right.
You see me with a new car. Just with
a whole bunch of sushi inside.
Well, nobody will be cheering harder. Believe us,
right,
nobody will be cheering harder, other than your family or whatever. Yeah. But like, we'll be, we'll be right there. We'll be cheering. We'll be watching.
Definitely.
Good luck. Stay healthy and all the best in the rest of the off season and the season. Hogan, we're rooting for you.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys. If you ever want me back, let me know. I'm excited.
All right.
Count on it. Thanks again.
Guys.
Bye.
Yep. Take care.
And we are back. All right. So you just heard us talk to the incredible Hogan and have a really fascinating interview with him. And before we get into our last section of the podcast this week and spotlight some of the topics we want to talk about, I just wanted to apologize if anybody was having some issues with my audio or video during that last segment because during the interview my connection wasn't great, so there might have been a couple times where it sounded like I was like asking Hogan a question before, or anyway, just if you picked up on that, that's what was going on.
I just assumed you were being rude, Dave.
Yeah. Well, that's always a good assumption with me, Gevin, but in this particular case, oddly, it wasn't. So, anyway, Gevin, I know I wanted to go to you first, actually. You had some interesting things that you were just mentioning to me that you wanted to talk about to Spotlight. So do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, totally. So, obviously from that interview, there's the point, Dave, that keeps coming up in every single one of our interviews, it feels like, which is that so often when one door closes, another one opens. And I think we saw that in Hogan's story when he got benched as a linebacker during college. He then, a few months, however long it was later, pivoted. And, what do you know? Now he's a starting long snapper in the NFL. And, I think it's important, though, to note that, again, from Hogan's story, we see that second door doesn't just open. You have to open it. And I think it comes from that sense of drive and determination and purpose and resilience and support and encouragement from your tribe, from your community, that I think really enables one to seek out that door and to open it. So there was that, and obviously wanted to mention it. But I really want to also emphasize, Dave, something that you briefly mentioned in the interview at the beginning of our discussion with Hogan, which is that real men go to the doctor. And, if you just think about it, the story that Hogan told us, the bout of strep pneumonia that he just recovered from and the near deadly infection that he just battled back from. Hogan was in peak physical fitness. He's a starting player in the NFL.
Yeah.
And
I mean, this is a guy who's like in better shape than, I'm going to venture to guess, no offense to anybody listening, but better shape than anybody who is listening to this podcast. Better shape than anybody that, frankly, like most people that we've ever met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a big part of that, Dave, is that he sees a doctor regularly. He's getting his physical, he's getting his lab work done. He sees a health provider pretty often, but yet and still, Hogan nearly died in an airport, in the smack dab middle of the airport. And so I think what I take from that, and what I think we should all take from it, are two things. One, if you're listening to us right now, young men, and you're not on your parents' health insurance, sign up for health insurance. In this country, health insurance is a lot more expensive than it should be. I know that. And in fact, it's free in a whole lot of other countries. And that's a whole separate conversation. I mean, Dave, you and I were both part of administrations that work to expand access to healthcare and to bring down the cost of healthcare for regular Americans and for young Americans like us, or at least like me.
Wow. But again, just unwarranted attacks.
I couldn't help it. I couldn't resist. But, as expensive as health insurance might be, it's even more expensive. The bill that Hogan definitely would have had leaving his hospital stay had he not had health insurance.
And it's so, there's this group, when I was in law school, there was this group called the Young Invincibles that somebody that we know founded. And the point of that was like a lot of young men feel like they're invincible. And they're like, yeah, Dave, yeah, Gevin, I hear you. I'm fine, dude. Don't worry about me. I don't need to go to the doctor. I can't remember the last time I went to a doctor. I'm fine. Right. And the reality is that I know people who sadly were diagnosed with cancer in their like late 20s, early 30s. Healthy dudes who work out, who eat right, who you would not think have a serious underlying illness. And all of a sudden they go to the doctor and it turns out that they do. Or somebody like Hogan, who, as we said, is like the most in shape person that we know.
Exactly.
And to your point, Gevin, it is just what's really expensive is not paying a few $100s every month for your health insurance. What's really expensive is collapsing in the middle of the airport, waking up in an ICU in a hospital, and finding out that you have $100,000 hospital bill that you now are responsible for paying. That's really expensive.
Right. So number one, sign up for health insurance. But then number two, sort of along those lines, go see your doctor, get your annual physical. I got mine a few weeks ago. My birthday was earlier this week. And I got my annual
Happy birthday,
physical.
Gevin.
I always do it around. Thank you. I always, still young, only 28.
Young-ish.
Youngish. But I always get my physical around my birthday. I think it's an easy way to just, get that done every year at the same time. Because I want to be around a long time for, for my girlfriend, for my mom, for my sister, for my co-host, you, Dave. So just pause, of course, just pause and think, close your eyes and think about who those people you love dearly are. There's people you want to be here a long time for. And obviously when it comes to your health and, diseases, there's so much out of your control. As Dave, you just mentioned, young people who did the things that they could do to stay healthy, but still, despite that, because of just other factors that we still just haven't learned about as a society and as a race, we're still trying to advance scientific and medical discovery, every single day. It's becoming a little bit more difficult these days with the freezes and funding that we're seeing, but that's another conversation. But the things that we can control, one of those things involves, enrolling in health insurance. Another thing is going to the doctor. Yes, when you're sick, Hogan went to the hospital, was in the ICU, he was sick, but going to the doctor also when you're healthy. And Hogan definitely does that as a pro athlete. I do that. Dave, I know you do that. Mm-hmm. And so that's my PSA to all of our listeners, is to sign up for health insurance and to get your annual physical. Two very easy things I think you can do.
Yeah, that's so important, Gevin. And look, we're not trying to make this a political podcast. Obviously we had Chris Cluey on, and he's very political. And obviously the two of us have worked in politics. We are political. But there's some of this, I hope, shouldn't be political. Like the idea that people should have health insurance and should check in with their doctor and should stay healthy. I think, again, we're not going to make this a political podcast, but when you hear about people who want to take health insurance away from other people or make it harder to access health insurance or more expensive to access health insurance if you have a pre-existing condition, I was in the Obama administration. Those were all things that we passed as part of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. And so when people talk about getting rid of that and getting rid of the ability to stay on your parents' health insurance plan until you're 26 or get health insurance even if you have a pre-existing health condition, just really think about the consequences, about what that could mean for your life. So just an important PSA. And then, so the last thing, Gevin, I wanted to just spotlight from Hogan's episode is just, again, we're so used to focusing on the stars. We're so used to focusing on the Tom Brady's, the Saquon Barkley's, the Derrick Henry's, the Lamar Jacksons, the super duper stars who are making all this money in the NFL and every league. But there are also so many Hogans, people who are not household names and who, frankly, Hogan's job, we should never really notice, or at least nobody will give him credit for. If he snaps the ball perfectly and there's 5 field goals in a game, sometimes you might hear people shout out the kicker and be like, what a great job by this kicker. He nailed those kicks. What an incredible job. And that's certainly true, but also to make those kicks, I think the kicker would be one of the first to say, and you often do hear them say, I'm part of a team. The only reason I could make that kick was because the offense got down there. And then, the long snapper snapped the ball. The guy holding the ball caught it because it was perfectly snapped and put it down perfectly for me to kick it. So I just think, I hope, frankly, that a lot of NFL fans never do learn Hogan's name, because I feel like the only reason would be to criticize him if something goes wrong. And that doesn't acknowledge that most Lions fans don't even probably know who Hogan is. Yeah. And that's because he did his job so well his rookie season that Lions fans didn't learn his name and didn't start to say Hogan, you messed up one snap one time out of hundreds of kicks and punts this year. So anyway, I hope it gives people a little bit of insight into what's going on for, when there is a special teams miscue behind the scenes and how hard those guys work. So,
and Dave, I think there's even a parallel there too with politics. For those of us, you and me and so many other staffers who work in the White House, we do that work not to be seen, not to be known. And quite frankly, typically when you hear about a staffer, it's when they've done something wrong or done something that's brought some embarrassment, on the administration. And so I think just like Hogan works every single day to be a part of his broader team and to do the job that he's there to do. And like you said, on a good day, in a good game, most fans don't even recognize him. Similarly for us, we do our work and we do our job. or in the past tense, we did. Sad. But we did what we did because we were part of a broader team and a broader mission. And what was best for all of us is if no one knew who we were, especially as speechwriters, because that was all about the vice president. It was all about doing what we could do to help put her in the best position to succeed. It was not about us, it was about her. And so I definitely relate to a lot of what you're talking about, when it comes to being a long snapper. And I think many people out there who've been a part of any team really can relate to that too.
I would hope so. And again, that's the point of all of what we're doing here. It's, your success very, very rarely is going to be solely attributable to you. You're going to have to rely on other people somehow, some way, and trusting the people that you work with, believing in them, supporting them, encouraging them. That's the only way. That's how I tried to be as a boss. And you're required to nod and say yes to that is what I did. And but that's anyway, to me, that's just a hallmark of good leadership and good teams is that they like working together, that they work hard for each other, and no one person needs all the credit because no one person deserves all the credit. Inevitably, it's always a team effort, almost always in almost every situation. So anyway, so that's this week's episode. It was a great interview. Loved talking to the Hogans of the world. And I know we got some more good guests lined up. So, everybody, please continue. If you like the show, if you like what Gevin and I are doing here, please, I know that it's cliche. I hate saying it myself, but please do subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating. That is so important for the algorithm. Please leave a rating, and give us some feedback and let us know what you want us to talk about. So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.